Well, first, I think we have to start with Merry Christmas. I am recording this on Christmas Day because the devs have done a Q&A on Christmas Day. Well, actually they recorded it beforehand, but released it today. And in it, they talk about having a massive 2024, but they can't share anything with us. There's also some really big information about lock-on and aim assist in PvP. Now, I just quickly want to say, it is Christmas Day here, but I've done all the family stuff. It's late in the evening, my child's asleep, I have no more family stuff to do. So I can bring you this insane video. So let's jump in. So one of the first questions is about Season 4 and the lack of quality. Basically, all the bugs and stuff. And they basically say that they know it wasn't good enough. And you're just going to have to trust them that they will try and do better. But honestly, I'm getting to the point where I'm not sure how much better they can do. Not because of the devs themselves, but maybe just because of the engine. We do tend to have quite a few bugs in this game, and I sort of think it's a little bit of spaghetti coding and a little bit the engine. Now, they did say that even though things broke that it didn't seem like they had touched, they were touching stuff in the back end, basically. Don't touch somebody's back end unless they consent, by the way. I don't know if I'm going to leave that in, but let's just presume that I will. So that's the reason. Things like your furniture disappearing, that's why that happened, is because of the touching stuff. That may be related, but it's in the code that doesn't actually affect anything right now, or at least it doesn't seem to. Alright, fair enough. There was a question about cross-world arenas because they were very suspiciously absent from Season 5 and they're going to remain suspiciously absent. They say that cross-world expeditions will be them adding role selector to their cross-world tech, and then arena will come at some point after that. I don't want to beat them over the head too much, it is Christmas after all, but it was implied that after we got cross-world Outpost Rush, that arenas might be sort of relatively easy to do. So I'm not really sure I understand what the holdup is here, but it's coming, it's just not coming in Season 5. Now, there were some big promises for PvP and PvE content in 2024, but they obviously can't talk about it until May. Now, that's one thing we're going to talk about in this video, is the potential of a huge 2024, but I'll leave most of it until the end at this point. There was a question about lock-on and aim assist when you use a controller and you're playing the game. Basically, they say that lock-on is something that will only happen in PvE. This, I'm guessing, is when you just won't miss your shots or your melee. I think it probably applies more to melee than ranged, but I'm not 100% sure until we see it. They do say that all of this is subject to change and they're going to twinkle with it. They also said that aim assist is planned to be used for PvP. There will be some level of aim assist if you use a controller and you're playing PvP. There will be some level of aim assist. Now, to a lot of people, they're going to be very angry, but it doesn't really change my point of view. It sort of depends how bad it is, how egregious it is, and how strong it is. One thing that sort of worries me is that people can sort of trick your mouse and keyboard into thinking it's a controller, and then maybe you could play mouse and keyboard with the aim assist. Now, I'm guessing that would be against TOS, but there's all kinds of stuff that could happen, and I'm a little bit worried, but I'm not overly concerned until I see it. You know, I simply need to see it, and they say it's going to be live on the Season 5 PTR, I think. So let's give it a bash then. I have a controller, I'm ready to go. Give me that aim assist. I might actually become vaguely playable when I use musket. Fire staff's so easy, you don't really need aim assist. That's a joke, that's a joke. I mean, it is easy, but I'm still bad with it anyway. There was a question about Serenity, and I cannot believe one of you cheeky chops, one of you degens, asked about nerfing my beautiful Serenity. Absolutely unbelievable. They said that they are aware that with some combinations it might even get even stronger than it is now. Like, it's relatively strong now in PvE. It's not super overpowered in PvP because I know it's a little bit cheesy, but you can dodge it because it's very telegraphed. But when it does hit like an absolute truck. But with the Frigid Dawn and with the new artifact, the heavy gauntlets that are going to increase the power of heavy attacks, yeah, it might get even, even stronger. Now, there's a question about the direction of content, like why are they making content that people didn't ask for? Why did they make controller? And they say, and to be fair, I don't know why anybody would expect this wasn't the answer, that they made controller because some people did want it. And I'm pretty sure that they did. I'm also pretty convinced at this point that console is going to be part of that major announcement in May, as well as probably a new expansion. Or they might not. It might be console first and then a new expansion. I don't know, we'll see. But I think the bigger question here that they didn't really answer is, where's the content that we do want, like Outpost Rush maps, repeatable raids, and stuff like that? And there's no real answer for that because it's just not in their plans, I guess. Or at least not yet. Hopefully it is in 2024 though. Somebody did ask about the economy with Chromatic Seals and, how much it is better with them being in the winter event. which is a little bit funny because they then basically made it so you don't need chromatic seals to do any crafting with. You now only use them for upgrading named items and upgrading artifacts, which I think it probably should have been like that since season 3 in the expansion, but I do think is probably a positive change. It now basically means that that is not actually a gold sink. It might actually be more expensive to craft with all the stuff that you need to craft a chromatic seal craft, even though you're not actually using a chromatic seal, you're using golden scalps and stuff like that. But the difference here is somebody farmed those mats and you are paying the person who farmed those mats, or the bot, depending on who did it. So the money mostly stays in the economy. There is obviously a bit of tax, and this makes it so that it's not a gold sink and the gold stays in the economy, which is probably going to rise the prices for prismatics and just in general, to be fair, because the amount of money leaving isn't as high. So that's going to have some market implications. Anyway, yeah, they'll keep offering chromatic seals and dark matter and stuff like that, but I just don't think it matters that much at this point. If you didn't know, for example, the Journey 2, the Chapter 2 from the Season Pass actually nets you 1,000 dark matter. So it's just getting a little bit easier to get. And I actually think on the PvP track at level 200, it's very, very frequent. It's like almost every track. So it makes sense, but yeah, not really sure that's that big of an issue right now in life. There was a question about influence races, which if I'm honest, makes me think that the devs don't really fully understand what's going on in their game. One of the devs sort of implied that it was just Abaton. I don't think it is Abaton right now. I think it's pretty much most servers. Pretty sure it is on Barry that you get 2 influence races at the same time, and I'm pretty sure it is on Marama. So I don't really understand this question. Well, actually, I understand the question, I don't really understand the answer. The question was, having 2 influence races at the same time is bad because people are just going to one anyway. Which is fair enough. I was an advocate, by the way, for putting 2 at the same time, so maybe I'm partly to blame, although, you know, the smart devs who tried it. And honestly, it does sort of reduce the amount of time slots available. Sort of knew that would be the case. And if it's not really fixing the teleporting issue, then it's not really doing the job, so they should just scrap it, right? What I wish they would do is keep the 4 influence races per day, but just spread them out. Like, the influence races are less important than wars, so it doesn't really matter if they're at sort of stupid times. Just spread them out. As long as there are some in the peak time, I think you could probably do 2 at peak time, 1 a bit later, 1 a bit earlier. Fine, that would maybe be okay. Obviously, the main issue here with this question is the teleporting, right? It doesn't matter how fun they are or when they are, if there's enough people going to one spot that they get teleported out, that's just always going to be frustrating. I do not know how you can fix that because it's obviously a proper technical limitation. So it's an interesting question, interesting subject. I personally just want to be able to do an influence race and play to like a daytime, but I appreciate that's not when most people play. So I get the peak time. It's just, you know, I don't really have a say in this because I don't really do them that much right now. And when I tried, I couldn't find a group, so no fun for me. There was a question about the Winter Warrior event, and basically I agree with this answer. The changes that they made are completely positive, better changes, that's the way it should have been when it launched, and that's what they say. And in future, they will just try and make it so it's like that when they launch. Feels like that's a lesson they could have learned earlier, but that's what they learned. I'm okay with that. I don't think farming the Winter Warrior like 1 billion times a day was that like fun or enjoyable for most people. For some of you, probably a little bit. Some of you DJ and content enjoyers. But I'm not sure the solution is necessarily rewarding enough to make it so that people are doing it enough. I don't know what the middle ground is here. Right now, they've sort of like kneecapped it a little bit because a lot of the people who wanted all the stuff got all the stuff early on, and then the people who are coming after it can't really get them as much. Yeah, there are kills, but not all the time. If I log on a weekday morning, there's nobody there, which makes sense because that's not going to be a busy time, is it? But if that's when I can play, then it reduces how frequently I can do it. So it is what it is. And then the next 2 things I want to talk about are questions about Outpost Rush. It wasn't actually a question about Outpost Rush. It was basically, hey, why were there no questions about Outpost Rush? And they were like, well, we didn't pick an Outpost Rush question because we can't answer an Outpost Rush question. And that basically means nothing is happening until May, and then they'll probably announce something in May, I would guess. They were like, we understand the question, we're looking into it, all makes sense. I sort of feel at this point, if they don't, they'll get absolutely like just leathered, and I don't think that would make any sense if they don't do it. So I'm pretty sure it will arrive. They just can't talk about it yet because it's too far out. The main issue is that they should have already have done it. It's already too late. It should have already have happened and we should already be playing it. Okay, fine. And then the next sort of question, I guess it was sort of maybe more of a statement, was how can there be no content until the end of season 5? And well, they're like, well, there's not no content because there obviously is content. We're going to have the 10-man seasonal trial and a couple of new seasonal events. And I'm like, yeah, technically that is content, but it's a little bit minor on the grand scheme of things. Because if we consider just before Season 6 releases will be about 9 months after the expansion, if we consider the actual proper content that is sort of repeatable, at least PvE wise, it will be 1 new dungeon and 1 new 10-man. And if I'm honest, that's not a lot. But I think this sort of leads into the bigger question about 2024. I do believe them when they say that they have a huge 2024 planned. However, I think it's a huge end of year 2024, and specifically, I think it's probably a huge September. I would not be surprised if the console and an expansion come out sort of like at the same time. Obviously, very early predictions, I have no idea what's going on. Pretty sure console is going to be part of the announcement, if not the major part of the announcement and like the only thing that's happening, and then an expansion later. But I do believe that we will get major content at the end of 2024, and I think it will be in the form of an expansion, and I think there will be a console announcement, and I think there'll be stuff that we want, a new Outpost Rush, etc., and probably content I can't even dream of right now. I can't even conceive of it. I don't know what they're planning. But even if that is true, even if we get a huge expansion in September, my problem is I don't think it's great for the game where we have one bit of content every year that we would count as major, and then for everything else it's very, very minor, borderline not even that relevant to most players. That can't be that big of a sustainable model if you want people to actually play in the gap. If you want people to play from expansion to expansion, then you need content from expansion to expansion. If you don't, then fine. So whilst I think the next expansion will be pretty big and have a lot of things that we want, the key issue here is it even worth playing the next expansion if you know that the only time you're going to get real content after that is going to be the expansion after it? What you'd be better doing is basically just play for a month or two after each expansion, which, to be fair, they might be happy with, because at least you've bought the expansion at that point. If they can make each expansion fun, enjoyable, and purchasable, that you'll actually go ahead and do it, then they might be happy with that. And the people who want content in between, well, they might just not give a damn. Maybe the season passes aren't bringing in that much money that they don't really care about that, as opposed to the expansion. So we'll see. I believe them when they say the end of 2024 will have big content. I'm just not sure it's going to work out the way they think it's going to work out. So we'll see about that. What we'll also see about is the end of this. There's one Patreon that I'm missing. I really do apologize. It's Christmas, right? I've not had time to do it right now. But big shout out to my Patreons. I do really appreciate you guys. You make this a lot easier. And if you want to come and talk to me on Twitch, I'll be streaming first thing tomorrow, actually. Like at the end of today, I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to wake up and I'm going to start streaming. So come ahead, come and watch me over on Twitch. I'll be playing New World, talking New World, having some great sexy times. So I went a little bit Austin Powers there, don't know why. For now, have a beautiful day, have a Merry Christmas, like and subscribe. Goodbye.